Marcus Thompson had been staring at the cream-colored envelope for 3 days before he finally opened it. The return address read Riverside University in elegant script, and he knew what it meant before breaking the seal. His daughter Jessica was graduating with her master's in social work, the first in their family to earn a graduate degree. Inside, handwritten in Jessica's careful penmanship, were the words that made his throat tighten. "Dad, I reserved you a seat in the VIP family section. Front row center. I want everyone to see the man who made this possible." Marcus had raised Jessica alone since she was 8, after her mother died in a car accident. 22 years in the army had taught him discipline, but nothing had prepared him for single parenthood. Between his construction job and night shifts at the warehouse, he'd somehow managed to keep food on the table and help with homework. When Jessica got her bachelor's degree, he'd been so proud he'd kept the graduation program in his wallet for 2 years. But this was different. A master's degree. His little girl was going to be a licensed therapist, helping veterans with PTSD. She'd chosen that path after watching him struggle with his own demons from 3 tours in Afghanistan. The ceremony was at Riverside's prestigious Whitmore Auditorium, known for hosting state politicians and corporate events. Marcus had driven past it dozens of times doing construction work on campus, always in his work truck with tools rattling in the back. He'd never imagined he'd walk through those marble doors as a guest. 3 weeks before graduation, he'd gone to the local thrift store and found a navy blazer that almost fit. It wasn't perfect, but with his best takis and the tie Jessica had given him for Father's Day, he thought he looked respectable enough. He'd even gotten a haircut at the barber shop downtown, sitting in the same chair where he'd brought Jessica for her first big girl haircut 15 years ago. But as the day approached, something felt off. Jessica had mentioned her advisor, Dr. Patricia Ashworth, several times during their Sunday phone calls. Always with a slight edge in her voice, always followed by a quick change of subject. When Marcus asked about it, Jessica would just say she's very particular about protocol. Dr. Ashworth was the director of graduate studies, a woman who'd built her reputation on maintaining the prestigious image of Riverside's programs. She'd been featured in the university magazine multiple times, always photographed in her office with its wall of diplomas from Ivy League schools. According to Jessica, Dr. Ashworth had very specific ideas about what kind of families properly represented the university at formal events. The Friday before graduation, Jessica called with an unusual request. "Dad, do you have anything nicer to wear?" "Like a suit." Marcus looked down at his blazer hanging on the bedroom door. "I thought the jacket would be fine, sweetheart. Is there a problem?" No problem. Dr. Ashworth sent out an email about appropriate attire for family members in the VIP section. She mentioned something about maintaining the dignity of the ceremony. Marcus felt that familiar tightness in his chest, the same feeling he'd gotten when other parents at Jessica's high school events would politely distance themselves once they learned he was a single dad who worked construction. "I'll figure something out, Jess. Don't worry about your old man." But as he hung up, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his best wasn't going to be good enough for Dr. Patricia Ashworth. The morning of graduation, Marcus arrived at Whitmore Auditorium 90 minutes early. He'd barely slept, partly from excitement and partly from the familiar anxiety that crept in when he had to navigate spaces where he felt like an outsider. The building was even more impressive up close. Marble steps, brass fixtures, and floor-to-ceiling windows that probably cost more than his annual salary. A steady stream of well-dressed families flowed through the main entrance. Marcus noticed the pattern immediately. Tailored suits, designer handbags, conversations about vacation homes and investment portfolios. He tugged at his thrift store blazer and took a deep breath. Jessica deserved to have her father there, and that's all that mattered. At the registration table, a young volunteer with perfectly styled hair and a clipboard smiled brightly. "Name, please." "Marcus Thompson. I'm Jessica Thompson's father." She scanned her list efficiently. Oh yes, here you are. VIP family section. She handed him a gold lanyard with distinguished guest printed on it. You'll be in the first 3 rows, section A. Just follow the red carpet. Marcus felt a moment of relief. Maybe he'd been overthinking things. But as he approached the VIP entrance, a woman in a severe black dress stepped in front of him. She was tall, probably in her 50s, with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun and the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. "Excuse me," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "I'm Dr. Patricia Ashworth. I don't believe we've met." Marcus extended his hand. "Marcus Thompson, Jessica's father. She's mentioned you." Dr. Ashworth's handshake was brief and cool. Her eyes traveled from his worn shoes to his blazer, lingering on the slight fraying at the cuffs. "Mr. Thompson." "Yes, Jessica is one of our students." She paused, as if weighing her words carefully. "I wanted to speak with you about seating arrangements. Is there a problem? I have the VIP pass." "Well, it's a bit delicate." Dr. Ashworth's smile became more strained. "You see, the front rows are reserved for our major donors and board members. There are certain expectations about presentation. I'm sure you understand." Marcus felt heat rising in his cheeks, but kept his voice steady. "Jessica specifically requested that I sit in the family section. She earned that spot through 4 years of academic excellence." Of course. But perhaps you'd be more comfortable in the general seating area. Still excellent views and less formal. Before Marcus could respond, a couple approached them. The man wore a suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month, and the woman's jewelry caught the light as she walked. Dr. Ashworth's demeanor changed instantly. "Mr. and Mrs. Pemberton, how wonderful to see you. Your son David is graduating magna cum laude, isn't that right?" As Dr. Ashworth fawned over the Pembertons, Marcus noticed how she positioned herself to subtly block his path to the VIP entrance. When the couple moved past them into the restricted area, Dr. Ashworth turned back to Marcus with that same cold smile. "As I was saying, Mr. Thompson, I think you'll find the general admission area much more suitable. Less pressure, more relaxed atmosphere." Marcus looked through the glass doors at the VIP section, where families were taking their seats in plush chairs with perfect views of the stage. His daughter had worked 4 years to earn him that seat. She'd specifically requested it because she wanted him front and center when she received her diploma. "I appreciate your concern, Dr. Ashworth, but I'll be sitting where my daughter requested." For just a moment, the polite mask slipped from Dr. Ashworth's face. "Mr. Thompson, I'm trying to save you from an uncomfortable situation. The VIP section has certain standards, and frankly," he glanced meaningfully at his attire, "I'm not sure you'll fit in with the other families." The words hit exactly as they were intended to. Marcus had heard variations of this message his entire life. In job interviews, at parent-teacher conferences, at Jessica's high school events. The polite suggestion that he belongs somewhere else, somewhere more appropriate for someone like him. But this time was different. This time, his daughter had earned him the right to be there. "Ma'am, with all due respect, I'll be sitting in Section A as requested. If there's a problem with that, I suggest you take it up with Jessica." Dr. Ashworth's smile turned arctic. "Very well, Mr. Thompson. But I trust you'll conduct yourself appropriately." As she walked away, Marcus realized this was just the beginning. Inside the VIP section, Marcus quickly understood what Dr. Ashworth had been trying to tell him. The first 3 rows were filled with people who belonged to a world he'd only seen from the outside. Conversations floated around him about European vacations, stock portfolios, and country club memberships. Several families had professional photographers documenting their arrival. Marcus took his assigned seat in the second row, directly behind a woman wearing what looked like a month's worth of his grocery budget in pearls. She turned to introduce herself to the family on her left, pointedly ignoring Marcus, despite him being directly behind her. The snub was so obvious that the elderly gentleman to Marcus's right noticed and offered a kind smile. "First graduation?" the man asked quietly. "Master's degree," Marcus replied. "My daughter Jessica. Congratulations. I'm here for my grandson. Third generation at Riverside." He paused. "I'm Robert Chen, by the way. Retired professor." They shook hands, and Marcus felt some of his tension ease. But the relief was short-lived. Dr. Ashworth appeared at the end of their row, clipboard in hand, scanning the section with the efficiency of a general inspecting troops. She stopped at Marcus's row and leaned down to whisper to the woman in pearls. Marcus couldn't hear the exact words, but he caught fragments. "Not quite what we expected. And perhaps you could." The woman in pearls turned to look at Marcus with poorly concealed disdain, then whispered something back to Dr. Ashworth. Whatever she said made Dr. Ashworth nod with satisfaction. Professor Chen had witnessed the exchange. "Ignore them," he said quietly. "Your daughter earned her place here, which means you've earned yours." But the damage was spreading. Marcus noticed other families in the VIP section glancing in his direction, whispering behind programs. A man in an expensive suit 2 rows ahead kept turning around to stare, his expression making it clear that Marcus didn't belong. The situation escalated when Dr. Ashworth returned with 2 other university officials. She pointed directly at Marcus while speaking in hushed tones. One of the officials, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, approached their row. "Excuse me, sir," he said to Marcus. "I'm Dr. Williams, Associate Dean. There seems to be some confusion about seating arrangements. Would you mind stepping aside for a moment?" Professor Chen straightened in his seat. "What kind of confusion?" Dr. Williams looked uncomfortable. "Well, it appears there may have been an error in the VIP assignments. We're just trying to verify." "Verify what?" Professor Chen's voice carried the authority of someone who'd spent decades dealing with administrative nonsense. "This gentleman has a VIP pass. His daughter is graduating. What exactly needs verification?" Marcus felt the eyes of everyone around them. Some families were openly staring now, treating the confrontation like entertainment. He could leave, avoid the scene, sit in the back where no one would question his right to be there. It would be easier. But then he thought about Jessica, probably putting on her graduation gown right now, believing her father was sitting front and center like she'd requested. He thought about all the times he'd worked double shifts to pay for her textbooks, all the nights he'd helped her study for exams while fighting his own exhaustion. "There's no error," Marcus said firmly. "My daughter specifically requested this seat. I have a pass, and I'm not moving." Dr. Williams glanced nervously toward Dr. Ashworth, who was watching from the aisle with her arms crossed. "Sir, if you could just cooperate." "He is cooperating," Professor Chen interrupted. "He's sitting quietly in his assigned seat. What more cooperation do you need?" The confrontation was drawing attention from throughout the VIP section. Marcus heard someone behind him whisper, "Who does he think he is?" Another voice added, "This is exactly why they should screen these people better." Dr. Ashworth approached with 2 security guards in tow. The message was clear: cooperate or be removed. Marcus looked around the section at the faces staring back at him. Some showed mild curiosity, others clear disapproval. A few seemed uncomfortable with what they were witnessing, but none spoke up. Except for Professor Chen, who stood up slowly and looked directly at Dr. Ashworth. "Patricia," he said, his voice carrying across the section. "What exactly are you doing?" The use of her first name and the public challenge clearly rattled Dr. Ashworth. "Robert, this is a simple administrative matter. Nothing that concerns you." "Oh, but it does concern me, because I've been coming to these ceremonies for 30 years, and I've never seen a family member with a valid VIP pass question like this." He gestured toward Marcus. "Unless there's something specific you'd like to share with all of us about why this gentleman doesn't belong here." The section fell completely silent. Dr. Ashworth's face flushed as she realized she'd been put in an impossible position. She couldn't state her real objections without exposing herself, but backing down would mean losing face in front of the university's biggest donors. "This is not the appropriate venue for this discussion," she said finally. "No," Professor Chen agreed. "The appropriate venue would have been never. This man's daughter earned her degree. He earned his place here. End of discussion." But Marcus could see in Dr. Ashworth's eyes that this was far from over. The ceremony began with the usual pomp: processional music, faculty in academic regalia, and Dr. Ashworth herself serving as master of ceremonies. From the podium, she looked directly at Marcus twice during her opening remarks, her smile never wavering but her message clear. Marcus tried to focus on why he was there. In less than an hour, Jessica would walk across that stage. None of the rest mattered. But as the ceremony progressed, the subtle harassment continued. During the recognition of donors, Dr. Ashworth made a pointed comment about families who truly embody the values and standards of our institution. The woman in pearls turned to look at Marcus again, her meaning unmistakable. When they reached the individual degree presentations, Marcus felt his heart rate spike. Jessica would be called soon. But as the S names were announced, Marcus noticed Dr. Ashworth speaking urgently to an assistant, who then hurried offstage. 3 students later, the assistant returned and whispered something to Dr. Ashworth. She nodded and made an announcement that made Marcus's blood run cold. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a slight change to our program. Due to some concerns about disruptions in the VIP section, we'll be implementing additional security measures. Anyone without proper identification will need to be re-verified before we continue." The implication was clear. Marcus was the disruption, and this was another attempt to remove him before Jessica's moment. Security guards appeared at both ends of the VIP section. Dr. Williams approached Marcus again, this time with less pretense of politeness. "Sir, we need to see additional identification. Your VIP pass isn't sufficient." "Additional identification for what?" Professor Chen demanded. "He showed his pass when he entered." "University policy," Dr. Williams replied, though his discomfort was obvious. "Recent security protocols." Marcus reached for his wallet, but Professor Chen put a hand on his arm. "Robert, don't bother. This is harassment, pure and simple." Around them, other families were watching with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. Some were clearly enjoying the drama, while others seemed increasingly uneasy with what they were witnessing. Dr. Ashworth's voice carried from the podium. "We'll pause the ceremony briefly while this matter is resolved." The entire auditorium, over 800 people, was now aware that something was happening in the VIP section. Marcus felt every eye in the building on him. The shame was overwhelming, not for himself but for Jessica. This was supposed to be her moment of triumph, and instead it was becoming a public humiliation. That's when he spotted her. Jessica was standing with the other graduate students in the wings, and she could see everything happening in the VIP section. Their eyes met across the auditorium, and Marcus saw the exact moment when she understood what was happening to her father. Jessica stepped out of line. Marcus shook his head frantically, trying to signal her to stay put, but it was too late. She was walking toward the microphone at the side of the stage, her graduation gown flowing behind her. Dr. Ashworth noticed the movement and tried to wave Jessica back, but Jessica had already reached the microphone. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly through the sound system to every corner of the auditorium. "Excuse me," Jessica said, her voice steady despite the tremor Marcus could detect. "My name is Jessica Thompson, and I'm receiving my master's degree today." The auditorium fell completely silent. That man in the VIP section being harassed by security. "That's my father, Marcus Thompson. And before you decide whether he belongs in that seat, let me tell you who he is." Dr. Ashworth was frantically gesturing for someone to cut Jessica's microphone, but the sound technician seemed frozen. 22 years, Army infantry, 3 tours in Afghanistan, Purple Heart recipient. But more importantly to me, he's the man who worked 3 jobs to put me through school, who helped me with homework even when he was exhausted from 16-hour construction shifts, who never missed a parent-teacher conference, never missed a graduation, never missed anything that mattered to me. Marcus felt tears burning his eyes. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. He raised me alone after my mother died, and he did it with more grace and dignity than anyone in this room has shown him today. So if the question is whether he belongs in the VIP section, let me be clear, he doesn't just belong there. He belongs anywhere he chooses to be. The auditorium was dead silent, except for the sound of Jessica's voice echoing off the walls. And if my father isn't welcome here, then neither am I. Jessica began removing her graduation cap, but before she could go any further, something unexpected happened. Someone in the general seating area began to clap. Then another person joined in. Then another. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was erupting in applause, except for the VIP section where families sat in stunned silence. But the sound that made Marcus's heart stop was the scraping of chairs. Because in the general seating area, people weren't just clapping. They were standing up. The applause continued for nearly 2 minutes. As it finally died down, Marcus noticed something that made his throat tighten. Scattered throughout the general seating area were other people like him. Working-class parents in their best clothes, some in military dress uniforms, others in department store suits. They weren't wealthy enough for VIP seating, but they were there to celebrate their children's achievements just like him, and they had understood exactly what was happening. Dr. Ashworth had regained control of the microphone and was trying to restore order. If we could please return to our program. But Jessica wasn't finished. She was still standing at the side microphone, and now she was looking directly at the VIP section. "I want to thank Professor Chen for standing up for my father," she said. "It means more than you know. But I also want to address something else." Dr. Ashworth's face was turning red. "Miss Thompson, please return to your place." Jessica ignored her. 3 weeks ago, Dr. Ashworth sent an email to all graduate students about appropriate family presentation at graduation. She suggested that families who might not reflect well on the university's image should consider attending the live stream instead of the ceremony. Gasps rippled through the auditorium. Professor Chen turned to stare at Dr. Ashworth with an expression of disbelief. She followed up with individual meetings for students whose families might pose presentation challenges. I was one of those students. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Jessica had never mentioned this. Dr. Ashworth suggested that my father might be more comfortable watching from home, since he might not fit the aesthetic of the VIP section. When I refused, she said she would handle it discreetly during the ceremony. The auditorium buzzed with shocked murmurs. Dr. Ashworth was gesturing frantically to cut Jessica's microphone, but the sound technician was pointedly ignoring her. "I want everyone here to understand something," Jessica continued. "My father didn't just earn his place in that VIP section through my academic achievements. He earned it through 22 years of military service protecting the freedom that allows this university to exist. He earned it through 16 years of single parenthood that he handled with more dignity than some people in positions of authority have shown in 16 minutes." Professor Chen stood up in the VIP section. "Dr. Ashworth, is this true?" Before Dr. Ashworth could respond, another voice joined the conversation. A woman in the general seating area had approached one of the microphones set up for student speakers. "Excuse me," she said. "I'm Linda Rodriguez. My daughter Maria is graduating today, and I received the same email Dr. Ashworth is talking about." More gasps. Dr. Ashworth looked like she wanted to disappear. "I was told that my English might not be good enough for the VIP section and that my family's presentation might distract from the ceremony. My daughter earned a 4.0 GPA while working full-time to support our family, but apparently that wasn't enough to qualify us for the front rows. Another parent stood up in the general seating area. Same here. I'm David Kim. My son graduated summa cum laude, but Dr. Ashworth suggested we might be more comfortable in the back because we might not understand the cultural expectations of the VIP area. One by one, parents throughout the general seating area were standing up and sharing similar stories. The pattern was becoming undeniable, and the families in the VIP section were beginning to look uncomfortable. But Marcus was focused on something else entirely. In the third row of the general seating section, he'd spotted a group of men in military dress uniforms. They'd been sitting quietly throughout the ceremony, but now they were standing too. The tallest one, a man with Master Sergeant stripes on his sleeves, approached the nearest microphone. "Sir," he said, looking directly at Marcus, "Master Sergeant Williams, Marine Corps, retired." Marcus recognized the bearing immediately, the straight posture, the precise speech, the unmistakable presence of a career military man. 26 years, 3 combat deployments. My daughter Sarah is graduating today, and we were also told the VIP section might not be appropriate for military families. Master Sergeant Williams paused, scanning the VIP section with the kind of look that made civilians uncomfortable. "But I want to say something to the gentleman in the second row who's been treated with such disrespect today." Marcus felt every eye in the auditorium focus on him. "Sir, I don't know you personally, but I know your type. I know what 3 combat tours take out of a man. I know what it costs to serve your country for over 2 decades. And I know what it takes to raise a child like Jessica Thompson, a child who stands up for what's right even when it costs her something." The Master Sergeant's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to command. "You belong in that VIP section more than anyone else in this building, not because of your clothes or your bank account, but because of who you are and what you've sacrificed." He turned to address the entire auditorium. And anyone who can't see that needs to take a long, hard look at their own values. The silence that followed was different than before. It wasn't shocked. It was respectful, the kind of silence that follows truth. But Dr. Ashworth wasn't finished fighting. Dr. Ashworth finally managed to get to a microphone, her professional composure clearly fraying. "This is highly inappropriate behavior that violates numerous university protocols. Security, please escort the disruptive individuals from the premises." But as security guards moved toward the microphones, something unexpected happened. Professor Chen stood up in the VIP section and pulled out his phone. Before anyone gets escorted anywhere, he announced loudly, "I think the board of directors would be very interested in hearing about these conversations Dr. Ashworth has been having with students." Dr. Ashworth froze. "Robert, this is neither the time nor the place. Actually, Patricia, this is exactly the time and place. Because I just realized something." Professor Chen looked around the VIP section with new understanding. "Look around this section. Really look." Marcus followed his gaze and suddenly saw what Professor Chen was seeing. The VIP section was overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly wealthy, and conspicuously lacking in the diversity that characterized the general seating area. "How many military families do you see in the VIP section, Patricia? How many working-class families? How many families who don't look like they stepped out of a country club directory?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Professor Chen continued, his voice growing stronger. 30 years I've been attending these ceremonies, and I never noticed the pattern until today. The VIP section isn't just for families of high-achieving students. It's being curated. Dr. Ashworth's face had gone pale. The VIP designation is based on multiple factors. Multiple factors like what? Skin color? Bank account balance? Whether someone's clothes meet your aesthetic standards? A murmur of unease rippled through the VIP section. Several families were beginning to look uncomfortable, as if they were suddenly questioning their own presence there. Master Sergeant Williams was still standing at the microphone in the general seating area. Professor Chen is right. My daughter Sarah graduated with a 3.9 GPA and is heading to medical school. But somehow we ended up in the general seating while families with lower achieving students got VIP treatment. Another parent in the general seating area called out, "My son graduated valedictorian, but we were told the VIP section was full." "Same here," came another voice. 4.0 GPA, Dean's List every semester, but no VIP seating available. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. High-achieving students from working class, minority, or military families had been systematically excluded from the VIP section through a combination of discouragement, lies, and administrative manipulation. Professor Chen was scrolling through his phone. "I'm looking at the university's non-discrimination policy right now, Patricia. Want me to read the relevant sections out loud?" Dr. Ashworth finally seemed to realize the magnitude of her situation. This is not the appropriate forum for these accusations. Then where is the appropriate forum? The voice came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Pemberton, one of the wealthy parents Dr. Ashworth had fawned over earlier. She was standing in the VIP section, looking directly at Dr. Ashworth with obvious disgust. "Because if what these people are saying is true, then my family has been complicit in something shameful. My son David got his VIP seating based on merit, not because we belong to the right country club." Mr. Pemberton stood up beside his wife. "We've donated significantly to this university over the years, Patricia. We didn't donate so you could use our money to fund discrimination." The foundation of Dr. Ashworth's authority was crumbling before everyone's eyes. The wealthy donors she tried to impress were turning against her. The university community was witnessing her exposed bigotry, and the evidence of systematic discrimination was becoming undeniable. But the final blow came from an unexpected source. A young man in graduation regalia approached one of the microphones. Marcus recognized him immediately. He'd been sitting with the other students waiting to receive their degrees. "My name is David Pemberton," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "And I want everyone here to know that I am absolutely disgusted by what I've witnessed today." Mrs. Pemberton gasped. This was her son, the one Dr. Ashworth had praised for graduating magna cum laude. 3 weeks ago, Dr. Ashworth called me into her office. She showed me a list of problematic families who might detract from the ceremony's prestige. Jessica Thompson's family was on that list. So was Sarah Williams's family. So were 12 other families of students who had better grades than I do. The auditorium erupted in shocked voices. David Pemberton continued, his voice growing stronger. "Dr. Ashworth asked me to help her identify which families might be unsuitable for VIP seating. When I refused, she suggested that my family's continued relationship with the university might benefit from my cooperation." Dr. Ashworth looked like she was going to be sick. "I should have spoken up 3 weeks ago. I should have reported this immediately. But I was a coward and I'm sorry." David looked directly at Jessica, who was still standing at the side microphone. "Jessica, your father belongs in the VIP section more than my family does. You both do." Then David Pemberton did something that would be talked about for years afterward. He took off his graduation cap and walked down into the VIP section. Without saying a word, he gestured for Marcus to stand up, then pointed to his own seat in the front row. "This is where you should have been sitting from the beginning," he said. Marcus shook his head. "Son, I appreciate the gesture, but—" "No," David interrupted. "This isn't a gesture. This is justice." And then, one by one, other students began leaving their places in the graduation lineup and walking into the VIP section. Not to take seats, but to stand behind Marcus and the other families who had been excluded. Dr. Ashworth had lost control completely. What happened next would become legendary in Riverside University history. as students continued to leave their places and stand with the excluded families. Dr. Ashworth made a final, desperate attempt to regain control. "Security, clear the auditorium immediately. This ceremony is over." But her authority had evaporated. The security guards looked to the university president, Dr. Morrison, who had been sitting in the front row, looking increasingly uncomfortable throughout the confrontation. Dr. Morrison stood up slowly and walked to the main podium. He was a man in his 60s who had built his reputation on academic integrity and institutional honor. As he adjusted the microphone, the auditorium fell silent. "Dr. Ashworth," he said, his voice carrying the weight of ultimate authority, "you are relieved of your duties effective immediately." Gasps echoed throughout the auditorium. Dr. Ashworth stared at him in shock. "Security will escort you from the premises while we conduct a full investigation into these allegations. If they prove true, and based on what I've witnessed today, I believe they will, the university will take appropriate action." Dr. Ashworth tried to speak, but Dr. Morrison continued. "This university was founded on principles of merit, equality, and respect for service to our country and community. What we've witnessed today is antithetical to everything we claim to represent." He turned to address the entire auditorium. "To the families who were wrongly excluded from the VIP section, I offer my personal apology and the university's commitment to making this right. To the students who stood up for their classmates and their families, you've demonstrated the kind of moral courage we hope to instill in all our graduates." Dr. Morrison paused, looking directly at Marcus, and to Mr. Thompson specifically. "Sir, your daughter is a credit to your parenting. Your service to our country deserves our deepest respect, and your presence here honors this institution far more than it honors you." The applause that followed was different from before. It wasn't just supportive, it was reverent. But Dr. Morrison wasn't finished. "I'm making several decisions effective immediately. First, this ceremony will continue, but with new seating arrangements. The artificial barriers between VIP and general seating are hereby eliminated. Every family here has a graduate they're proud of, and every family deserves equal treatment." Staff members immediately began removing the red ropes and barriers that had separated the sections. Second, the university will be conducting a comprehensive review of all our graduation policies to ensure this never happens again. Third, we will be extending a personal invitation to every family that was wrongly excluded today to attend a special recognition ceremony where they will receive the honor they deserve today. Professor Chen was nodding with approval, but he wasn't the only one. Throughout the auditorium, families were looking at Dr. Morrison with newfound respect. "Finally, I want to address the students directly. You've shown remarkable character today. Jessica Thompson, your courage in defending your father reflects the very best of what education should produce. David Pemberton, your willingness to acknowledge wrongdoing and take action to correct it demonstrates true leadership." Jessica was crying now, but they were tears of relief and pride. "Master Sergeant Thompson," Dr. Morrison continued, looking directly at Marcus, "would you do us the honor of sitting in the front row, center seat where you belong?" Marcus felt his throat close up. Through his peripheral vision, he could see families throughout the auditorium standing and applauding. But his focus was on Jessica, who was beaming at him from the stage with a smile that made every moment of struggle worth it. As Marcus walked down to the front row, escorted by Master Sergeant Williams and Professor Chen, the entire auditorium rose to their feet. The applause continued for nearly 5 minutes. When he finally sat down in the center seat of the front row, Marcus looked up at Jessica and saw her mouth the words, "I love you, Dad." The ceremony continued, but everything had changed. When Jessica's name was called and she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, she paused before accepting it and looked directly at her father. "This is for you, Dad," she said into the microphone. As she accepted her diploma, Marcus stood up and saluted his daughter, not as a veteran, but as a father who had never been more proud. The standing ovation lasted 10 minutes. 3 months after the graduation ceremony, Marcus received a phone call from Dr. Morrison himself. The investigation into Dr. Ashworth's conduct had revealed a pattern of discrimination spanning 5 years, affecting over 200 families. She had been terminated immediately and faced potential legal action from multiple civil rights organizations. "Mr. Thompson," Dr. Morrison said, "I wanted you to be among the first to know. The university board has voted unanimously to establish the Marcus Thompson Family Honor Scholarship, specifically for children of military veterans pursuing graduate degrees." Marcus was speechless. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll accept our invitation to speak at next year's graduation ceremony. We want to make sure this story is remembered and that future graduates understand what real honor looks like." But the changes went deeper than scholarships and speaking engagements. The video of Jessica's speech and the subsequent events had gone viral, shared millions of times across social media. The hashtag #WhoBelongs had become a rallying cry for inclusive excellence in education. Dr. Ashworth's termination had sent shockwaves through the academic community. Other universities began reviewing their own practices, and several administrators across the country quietly resigned rather than face similar investigations. The Pemberton family had become unlikely allies in the fight for change. David Pemberton had transferred his remaining graduate credits to a different program and was now working as an advocate for educational equity. His parents had redirected their donations from building funds to need-based scholarships specifically for first-generation college students. Master Sergeant Williams and his daughter Sarah had become close friends with Marcus and Jessica. Sarah was now in medical school, specializing in treating veterans with PTSD, inspired by the example of courage she'd witnessed that day. Professor Chen had used his influence to ensure that the new graduation policies were implemented across the entire university system. He'd also started a mentorship program pairing veteran students with faculty members who understood their unique challenges. 6 months after graduation, Marcus attended the special recognition ceremony Dr. Morrison had promised. This time, there were no VIP sections, just families celebrating their children's achievements together. When Marcus was introduced as the keynote speaker, he received a 5-minute standing ovation before he even said a word. His speech was simple. Excellence isn't measured by the clothes you wear or the money in your bank account. It's measured by the character you show when no one important is watching, and the courage you find when standing up costs you something. But perhaps the most meaningful change was personal. Jessica had been offered a position at the university's counseling center, working specifically with student veterans and their families. She'd accepted, with one condition. Her office would always have an open door for any family member who felt unwelcome anywhere on campus. A year later, Marcus sat in that same auditorium for another graduation ceremony. This time he was there as an honored guest, not a man fighting for his right to be present. As he watched the proceedings, he noticed the diversity in the front rows: military families, working-class parents, first-generation immigrants, all celebrating their children's achievements together. Dr. Morrison had kept his word. The artificial barriers were gone, replaced by a simple truth that should have been obvious from the beginning. Every family that had raised a graduate deserved to be there. During the ceremony, a young man approached Marcus during the reception. He was wearing his army dress uniform, and Marcus could see the nervousness in his bearing. "Sir, I'm Specialist Rodriguez. My sister is graduating today, and I wanted to thank you." Marcus shook his hand. "Thank me for what, son?" "For showing us that we belong here too. Last year, I wouldn't have worn my uniform to something like this. I would have thought it wasn't fancy enough, wasn't good enough. But after what you did," he gestured around the integrated auditorium, "you changed everything." Marcus looked around the room and saw what the young man meant. Military families were wearing their dress uniforms with pride. Working-class parents were sitting in the front row without apology. The auditorium looked like America. diverse, proud, and unified by shared values rather than divided by artificial barriers. That evening, as Marcus drove home, he thought about the invitation that had started it all. Jessica's handwritten note requesting his presence in the front row had seemed like such a simple thing. But it had sparked a confrontation that exposed years of systematic discrimination and ultimately led to meaningful change. His phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Dad, thank you for not backing down. Thank you for showing me what real courage looks like. Love you." Marcus smiled and kept the text, just like he'd kept that original graduation invitation. Some moments are worth preserving. As he pulled into his driveway, Marcus reflected on how dramatically his life had changed. He was still the same man who worked construction, still lived in the same modest house, still wore clothes from thrift stores. But now he was also a symbol of something larger. The idea that dignity and respect shouldn't depend on wealth or status, but on character and service. The irony wasn't lost on him. Dr. Ashworth had tried to exclude him because she thought he would embarrass the university. Instead, her actions had exposed an ugly truth and forced an institution to live up to its stated values. Sometimes, Marcus thought, the best revenge isn't getting even, it's becoming impossible to ignore. 3 years later, Riverside University's graduation ceremonies were considered a model for inclusive excellence. The Marcus Thompson Family Honor Scholarship had supported dozens of veteran families, and the story of that day had become part of the university's official history. Dr. Ashworth had never found another position in higher education. Her discriminatory practices had been exposed in a detailed investigative report that was shared throughout the academic community. The stain on her reputation was permanent. A reminder that actions have consequences, especially when they target people who have already sacrificed for their country. But Marcus rarely thought about Dr. Ashworth anymore. He was too busy looking forward to Jessica's wedding next year, where he'd walk her down the aisle wearing the same thrift store blazer he'd worn to her graduation. She asked him specifically to wear it, calling it the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen him in. "Why?" he'd asked. "Because," Jessica had replied, "it's what you were wearing when you taught me that fighting for what's right is always worth it, even when the whole world is watching." Sometimes the greatest victories aren't won through force or wealth or influence. Sometimes they're won by one person who refuses to be moved from where they belong, and who inspires others to remember what really matters. Marcus Thompson had earned his place in that VIP section through 22 years of military service and 16 years of devoted fatherhood. But he'd earned something more valuable that day: the respect of an entire community and the knowledge that standing up for what's right can change everything. In the end, that's a legacy worth more than any diploma. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and become a part of our Everyday Life Stories community. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from our amazing viewers around the world.